Hey everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet the Sweetheart Jar Cozy. And we can use this any time of year because hearts aren't just for Valentine's Day. I'm going to be showing you a technique called center single crochet, and it gives the appearance of a knit look stitch, and it works really great for this jar cozy. And I'm also going to show you how to incorporate the heart in here without having to make an applique and sew it on top. Now this is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and you can find that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. What you're going to need to make one of these jar cozies is 3 different colors of worsted weight number 4 yarn. This one I stitched with the red and purple sparkle. This yarn is called Red Heart Shimmer. They no longer make the Red Heart Shimmer, but you can use any worsted weight number 4 yarn. You can use a sparkle yarn or a regular. And I'm going to be using these 3 colors. These are just Red Heart Super Saver, the white for the white areas. I'm going to use this pink where I have the red, and I'm going to use this lavender where I have the darker purple. So basically I'm doing it in pastels this time. We're going to be stitching with our eye hook. The eye hook is a 5.50 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle for weaving in those ends, and of course you'll need your scissors. And then the other thing you're going to need is a jar. This pattern is made to fit a 16-ounce mason jar. Some other alternatives, if you don't want to go out and purchase some mason jars, is you can check your pantry. There are some pickle jars and olive jars, sauce jars that are about the same size. If you look for one that's about 16 ounces, it'll usually fit just fine. There's also some that you can purchase individually at Michael's and Joann's that are made out of plastic. And that's what this one here is. And I've got some candies in there because that's what I'm going to fill my jar with. And this one is plastic. So if you're going to be using this with children, this is a great alternative too. So you don't have to worry about it breaking. We're going to be starting at the bottom and work our way around to the top. I'm going to start with my white yarn. We'll start with the slip knot and chain 5. We'll join this into a circle, put the tail of our yarn over our hook, pull it through that loop, and then we'll just snug that down. And then I'd like to tie a little stay knot in the top so it stays put. We don't want our projects to come undone. All right, I'm going to put my hook through, pull that loop up, and chain 3. This chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. And I'm going to double crochet 11 more in this circle. Yarn over, go in the circle, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over, and go through the second 2. And I'll continue this around till I have 12 because I'm stitching 11 double crochets because my chain 3 counted as my first double crochet. Another thing you'll notice is that when I'm stitching my double crochets, I'm stitching over that tail of yarn. And that's because when we're done, I can pull that yarn and close up the hole in the center so I don't have a hole. All right, let's see how many I've done so far. Here's our chain 3, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right, let's put that string to the back side there out of the way. We're going to join to the top of our chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. Now, I'm going to turn this over and watch as I gently pull, and that closes that hole. And then I can come back in and weave this in later. For row 2, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the same stitch as that chain 3. And then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in each of the double crochets around. And so since we had 12 double crochets on row 1, we'll have 24 double crochets for row 2. Two double crochets in each of the double crochets around. I've stitched 2 double crochets in each of the double crochets around. I'm going to join to the chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 1. For row 3, we're going to be placing 1 single crochet in each double crochet. So we'll go right into the top of that chain 3, stitch a single crochet, and then we'll stitch a single crochet in each of the double crochets around. And so since we're not increasing, we'll have 24 single crochets. One single crochet in each double crochet around. I have completed those 24 single crochets. I'm going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch, but I'm not going to chain 3. I'm switching to my color 2, which is my lavender. We'll just bring that in, snug that down, and chain 3. I'm not cutting my white yarn. We're going to trail that up on the inside. That way it's one less tail we'll have to weave in. All right, now on row 4, we want to go up to 25 double crochets instead of 24. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put a double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3, and then we'll put 1 double crochet in each of the stitches around. And that's going to give us 25 double crochets instead of 24. 1 double crochet in each of the single crochets around. I've completed that row of double crochets, and remember we added an extra stitch at the beginning, so now we have 25 double crochets. We're going to join to the top of that chain 3 with a slip stitch, and then we're going to cut our yarn because we're not going to be using the lavender till the end, and it would be too far to string our yarn along. All right, we're going to continue to leave the white one, and we're going to bring in color 3, which is our pink. Now for row 5, we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets around. So we're going to go right in this first stitch, and then we'll stitch a single crochet in each of the 25 double crochets around. And this is laying the row, the foundation row. In our next row, we're going to begin stitching the center single crochet stitches. And I love doing them because it just makes such a pretty effect, and it looks really nice with the heart also. So for this row, we're just stitching 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets around. I've completed row 5, stitching 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets. I'm going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch and chain 1. Now on this row is where we're going to begin using the single crochet technique called center single crochet stitch. And what we're going to do is normally we stitch through these 2 loops, right? Well, we're not going to be doing that. We're going to go between the 2 loops that are below. So what we'll do is, here I'm going to go right in that first one, pull up my loop, yarn over, and go through those 2 loops. I stitched my single crochet going through those 2 loops. Let's do the next one. And this can be really tight, so we need to make sure that we aren't stitching too tightly. Go between those 2 loops and stitch your single crochet. We're still stitching a single crochet, we're just basically putting it in a different spot. And by putting it between those 2 lower loops, it gives us a little bit of a look of a knit stitch. And I do recommend that you loosen it up just a little bit. If you stitch it too tightly, it can start to twist. Isn't that pretty? I'm going to continue stitching my single crochets all the way around this row, and we're going to be using this technique through the center of our Cozie or Cozie where we stitch the heart. So I'll show you how to do all of that as well. I finished row 6, stitching my single crochets in the center of each of my single crochet stitches. I joined to the first single crochet, and I'm going to bring my white back in, and we just pull it up, making sure it's not gapey on the inside. It's laying nicely, but not too tight because it needs to stretch a little when we slide it onto our jar. All right, I'm just going to chain 1, and that just brings us to the top so that we're stitching on top. And for the next 2 rows, we're going to repeat what we did for row 6. We're going to just stitch 2 rows with the white, stitching in the center of our stitches instead of the top. And I think that when I put that white in there, you can see a little bit more clear where the stitch needs to go. So we're going to stitch 2 rows with our white yarn, 1 single crochet in each single crochet around, stitching what's called center single crochets. I've stitched those 2 white rows, stitching my single crochets in those lower loops for the center single crochet. Now, one thing that you will notice is because we're stitching in the round instead of back and forth, you will have a slight tilt. And that's okay. It still looks really pretty, but I just wanted to warn you of that in case you get frustrated. On this row, we're going to begin forming the heart. And so what we're going to do is we're going to stitch 1 single crochet, still working in that center portion of our stitch, in the next 12 stitches. And of course, we're still using the white. 1, 2, 3, 11. And now we're going to work our 12th stitch. But what we're going to do is we're going to go in, we're going to pull up a loop. But since we're changing colors, we're not going to finish that loop. We're going to bring in our pink, and I'm going to leave it a little bit loopy because we're bringing it from all the way over here, and I'll probably cut that and weave that in. All right, so I'm going to bring my pink in, make sure our white's snug down, move that out of the way. And we're only going to stitch 1 stitch in the pink. So we're going to go in, we're going to pull up our loop, and then we're going to bring the white back in. And that's how your one stitch of pink should look. And we do it that way so that the colors don't go wonky on us. Let me get in that next stitch so you can see. And then we'll go ahead and stitch all the way around in those last 12 stitches. There we go. Make sure you're stitching in that center of the single crochet. Mine's a little tight and I keep popping next to it. There we go. Because the center portion all the way up till we put on the trim is stitched working in the center of the single crochet. Alright, so I'm going to stitch those last 12 stitches and join. And that's what the one stitch in pink should look like. Now for row 10, instead of doing 12, we're only going to do 11. So we're going to stitch one single crochet working in the center of the stitch in the next 11 stitches. And remember, when you get to that 11th stitch, don't finish it because we're going to bring in our pink color. Alright, now we're not going to finish this stitch because we're changing colors. We're going to grab our pink and pull that in. That's our 11th stitch. Alright, now we're going to be stitching over our white yarn. That tail out of the way. So I'm holding the white yarn across. I'm going to go in the center of the next stitch and stitch my single crochet. Then I'll go in that pink one, stitch my single crochet, then I'll go in the next one because we're doing 3 right in the center. And we're not going to finish this, so we're going to drop our pink and grab our white. Alright, and now we're going to finish those last 11 stitches with our white around the back. And so here's our heart forming, here's our 1, and then we stitched 3. And we'll continue working around those last 11 stitches in white. I finished those 11 stitches around the side. I've joined and I've chained 1. And what we're going to do is, instead of 11 white, we're going to do 10. We're still stitching, of course, in the center of our single crochets. And remember, like I said, make these just a little bit loose so that you don't have trouble getting your crochet hook in there. So I'm going to stitch 10 center single crochets, or stitch in the center of the next 10 single crochets, because we're going to have 5 of the pink ones. Alright, and it can be a little cumbersome stitching with 2 threads, but it works out best this way if you leave them both attached. You don't want to have to weave it in every row. Alright, so here's my 10th. I'm going to grab that pink yarn and bring it in. We're going to stitch over the white. We'll go right in that next stitch in the center and stitch our first pink single crochet. Now, you will have a pink tail of yarn going across, but we'll stitch over that as well. Alright, so we'll go into the next one in the center. Then we'll go in the center of the next one. and then we'll do the next one. And remember, we're not going to finish our last stitch. We're going to drop our pink and bring in our white. Give that a little bit of a pull, make sure it's snug down, not too tightly, but just so it's laying pretty. And then we'll stitch in those last 10 single crochets. And again, we're stitching in the center, not the top, so we're calling it the center, single crochet. And one thing that happens when you stitch too tightly, I've done it a couple times, you go in there and your crochet pops over. So if your stitch is too tight, you need to loosen it up just a little bit. All right, and that's how it should look. We went from having 1 to 3 to 5 for our heart. We'll continue stitching around and join back. Instead of doing 10 single crochets, we're going to do 9 because we're going to have 7 of the pink in the center. Alrighty. All right, here's our 9th one. We're going to bring our pink in. Snug everything down and in place. Then we'll go in our next stitch with our pink. Make sure you stitch over that white thread from the back. It just keeps it in place so you don't have it, just string along in the back and get caught on things. All right, there's our 6th one. That one, for some reason, at the last one there, and the color is always a little bit tricky. All right, so now we need to do our 7th. Bring our white back in, drop our pink, and then we'll finish with those 9 center single crochets. All right, but before I do that, I want you to see how it's looking. Isn't that pretty? I completed those 9 stitches, joined and chained 1. And now for the next 2 rows, we're going to repeat exactly what we did. We're going to do 9 single crochets and 7 single crochets with the pink, and then end with the 9 in the white. So we'll repeat what we did for 2 more rows. And I'm just going to walk you through it again for this row. There it is. Bring in your pink. There we go. Snug that down. Oops, I think I got a string. Let's see. There we go. Alright, there's my 7th. Bring my white back in, drop my yarn, and then stitch 9 single crochets in the center, join to the first single crochet, chain 1, and repeat. I've completed those 2 rows so that we have 3 rows that are exactly the same, 9 with 7 and 9 on the end. All right, so now we're going to form those little heart bumps. So I've already joined. I'm going to chain 1. And this is the one where it can be just a little bit clumsy, I think is the word I'm looking for. So just take it nice and slow, and I'll walk you through. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 10 single crochets. Again, we're still working in that center. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then our 10th one is the first one in the pink. And remember, we're changing colors, so we're not going to finish our single crochet. We're going to grab our pink and pull it in. Make sure you got a little stretch. All right. Then we're going to stitch 2 in the pink. All right. So we'll go in the next one. There's 1. And since we're only stitching 2, we're going to go in, pull up our pink, then we're going to grab our white. We're only going to stitch 1 in the white, so we'll go in, pull it up, and then we'll switch back to the pink. And then we'll stitch 2 in the pink, 1, 2, and again we don't finish it because we're changing back to the white. And we stitch that last pink one in the white. And then we'll stitch in the last 10 in white. Or color number 1, you may have changed and not even be using white on this portion. All right, but before I finish that, I want you to see how that looks. We have 10 in the white, 2 in the pink, 1 in the white, 2 in the pink, and then 10 in the white. And I'll keep moving on around here. And once you get past this row, you have completed the hardest part of this koozie. The main thing is remembering to change your color before you finish your single crochet. So the heart portion is now complete, and I finished working around my row. I've joined, chain 1, and now for the next 2 rows, we're going to be just stitching 2 rows of the white, still stitching in the center of our single crochets. 1 single crochet using color 1 for 2 rows. And you'll see when we get this next row finished, that the heart is really going to stand out and look pretty. There we go. Make sure that pink's out of the way. See how that pops out? All right, so I'm going to finish this row and then do another row in white or color 1. I've completed those 2 rows in the white. I'm going to cut my yarn, and then I'm going to bring back in my pink. And then I'm going to do 2 rows of the pink. There we go. And I'm still stitching in the center, so I'll go right in the center. And stitch 2 rows exactly like I did the 2 previous rows. 1 single crochet and each single crochet around, stitching in the center of my single crochets for 2 rows. I have finished those 2 rows of single crochets, still stitching in the center of our single crochet. I've cut my yarn, and I'm going to bring in my lavender, snug that down, and I'm going to chain 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch 1/2 double crochet in each of the stitches around, and we're not going to stitch in the center of the single crochet anymore. So yarn over, go through those loops like we usually do, yarn over, and pull through all 3 of those loops. That's our 1/2 double crochet. And you'll notice I am stitching over my yarns. I like to do that, and I'll do that for a few stitches, and then I'll come back in and weave those in. Alright, so now they're in my way, so I'm just going to move them. Yarn over, go in the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3. So we're placing 1/2 double crochet in each of the single crochets around. And of course we're using our lavender color to tie it in with down here. I completed that row of 1/2 double crochets, and now we're going to do the last row, and it's just a simple single crochet in each stitch around, and we're not stitching in the center, we're stitching in those 2 loops that we normally do. So 1 single crochet in each of the 1/2 double crochets around. I've completed that last row of single crochets, and I joined, brought my yarn to the inside, and I do have a few ends I need to weave in and just tidy it up on the inside. But I wanted you to see how it fit. Those candies I'm going to put inside. I take the jar upside down and I just slide it on. I usually pop the bottom just to make sure it stays flat. And you'll notice on this one, if you've done some of my other ones, that it does come up just a little bit higher because I'm trying to get it to go up around the edge of where the lid comes on. And keep in mind you will have a little bit of a twist going one way because of us stitching in the round opposed to going back and forth. But I love how it turned out. I love that it looks like knit. And now both of my jars are ready to be filled with candy and to be given as gifts.